Hello to everyone. Good morning. Yay. I don't know why I keep messing. Oh, I know I mess with the volume because Annie's going to be here. Some mornings, like this morning, I'm like very proud of myself because I'm running around in the last 5 minutes, frantically trying to get ready. Yes, thank you, Dave. Here we go. Now I know that you guys can hear and see me. This is good. Otherwise, I'm talking to myself. When I was Zoom teaching during the pandemic, sometimes I really thought, am I just in a room by myself talking to a screen? Like, am I truly insane? Rosie is awake. She's not enthusiastically awake, I will say. She's making little peeping noises. Someone says they can hear but not see. I don't know what to say about that, since you folks can see me, right? I'm assuming so. Okay. I guess you would tell me if you couldn't see me. That someone just asked if this was a mug cozy. It is a mug hider, which you can see. Thank you. Which was made by a History Matters watcher. And I don't want to get her name wrong. And I need Annie to be here, or Carolee to tell me. I think I know her name, but if I get it wrong, I'm going to feel miserable. Anyway, I'm waiting for Andy, and let me go make sure that I actually sent Annie the link. I did. Okay, excellent. We can wait a bit anyway. Hiding the loose. My Mr. Grumpy mug is not in New York City, I will say. That's right, it's a mug hider, says Kenneth. Okay, Carolee, there you are. Carolee, do you remember the name of the person who gave me the mug hider? I'm afraid to guess it, and I'm going to, I want to say it was Diane or Diana. Annie might. If the person's here and they actually are named Diane or Diana, tell me, because I'll feel really good. Rabbi Beth is here. Okay, Annie is not here yet. I do not know why. Let me try again. I'll send her the link one more time. Okay. Okay, I sent her the same link both times. I don't know why it's okay. Bink. It's okay if we're late. I'm so not a morning person. Yes, folks, you made it. If you are here, you made it. That's good. And I might even. She didn't say she wasn't going to be here this week, did she? Oh, people, my brain. I don't know why I swallowed a fly. I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. I don't know why she swallowed a fly. I think she'll die. I think that's the, I believe that is the song that someone just referenced. Okay, I don't know if Annie's not going to be here, and it's very well maybe that she isn't, which will be sad, but if she is, she's got the link. Oh, there she is. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Say something again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you guess where I am?
Oh, yes. Charlottesville.
I am. I'm in Monticello. I'm literally at Monticello.
Okay.
I'm there for a workshop, but they're letting me steal this little room to use for today.
Which is very kind. Here's my. Do you remember the name of the very wonderful person who made the mug hider? Was it Diana or Diane?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh God, that's what I want to say. And if you're here and I'm getting it wrong, please yell at me.
Yeah.
I remember that she stopped her car when I mentioned it because she had given it to me, and then it was getting airtime. I remember that, but at any rate, the picture is of the former head of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation,
and I'm assuming his wife.
Yeah, and I assume his wife, and that's Monticello behind them. So
yep.
Yes.
Well, I am in a little tiny meeting room next to the visitor center.
Well, I think I actually know that room.
yeah. We've used it a lot for a lot of things over the years.
Yeah.
I used to bring my students here because I used to, of course, be in charge of the social studies in Charlottesville. So I've been here hundreds of times. So it just feels like home. But it was nice of them to let me use the room today.
No, that is very good. It's kind of perfect, actually.
Yeah.
Trying to catch up on. Yes, someone says recognize the house and the painting. Yes, indeed.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're here, the kind person who I think is named Diane or Diana who pulled over her car, because I remember that this is many years ago, guys. So don't think I'm forgetting you. And for those who asked, why do I need to hide my mug? I might as well explain it now because I have a mug that relates to whatever we're talking about, but it's always a surprise that I wait until the end of the formal part of our discussion. So a very wonderful person actually made this so that I used to have a paper towel and I would hold over it when I drank, and that was really just not very chic. So of course,
the mug cover's great.
Mug. How could I not have a manly mug for today's conversation?
That's right.
Yes. I don't.
Someone called a top coat for your mug.
Yes, it's a formal frock coat for my mug. Okay. What did I just see here? You were the very first one, Tim, in episode 1 to ask about the mug. Tim.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Tim's with us from the beginning.
Tim from the very beginning. But the paper towel, if you go back all the way to the beginning for a while, you'll see the sadness of the. I wanted to surprise you. Okay, I'm going to wait another moment or two. No one needs a manly mug. Well, I'm going to explain my. That would be generally true, but I'll explain my manly focus academically shortly. Okay. I guess, well, we'll give it another minute or two since people are still streaming on, and then I can have more coffee.
And someone said Mug Frock is a great band name. I agree. I like that one. I miss Claire for many reasons. Claire was the person at NCHE that used to help us behind the scenes. But one thing I loved about her was she kept a spreadsheet of all the band names. And I just can't keep up with that while we're doing this.
That was a good one. Mug Frock.
Mug Frock.
No one would know what it meant.
Yeah, it's such a fun name.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have to ask Claire to send us the list.
Yes.
We kept a list for a long time.
We did for a long time.
Francesca is here. Rabbi Beth saying hi to Francesca. See, people who've been here a long time. And people who are here new.
Dr. Nancy Walker's here, who manages our Slack account now, which is so helpful.
Wonderful.
So she will put information in the chat on how to join Slack.
And we're going to welcome everybody momentarily. Okay, it's 5.
People are asking about Rosie. Want to know how she's doing?
She went back to sleep.
Oh, I saw something this week. She tried arugula for the first time.
She actually put her beak on arugula. It's the first time I've managed to get her to have anything that isn't birdseed. This was a major accomplishment. She now has her beak on her back and she's peeping quietly to herself. So it's very cute, but she went back to bed. Okay. We should probably begin. Okay, everyone, welcome to History Matters, and so does coffee. Today, we're going to be talking about manly men. Yes, for obvious reasons, given where we are now and our politics. But before I plunge into manly men, I turn to my wonderful partner in crime, Annie, who will explain the rules of the game.
Hi, everybody. I'm Annie Evans from New American History. Love gathering here with you guys every Friday. If you're just now tuning in, I am at Thomas Jefferson's house today, which is about 12 miles from my house. I'm with a bunch of social studies teachers from all across the state. We have a full day workshop, but they let me sneak out and use this cool little room. You can see a painting of Monticello there behind me. The way this works, Joanne's going to talk about today's topic for about 30 minutes. I'll be off screen during that time. Continue to engage in the chat, but if you have questions, please hold those to the very end. Wait until I tell you we're ready for them, and then you will be able to put your questions in. We're using QQQ, 3 capital letter Qs in a row, and then you ask your question so I can find it more easily in the chat. But please make sure that you wait until I give you the signal, because the chat is just way too overwhelming. Unless we do it that way now that we're on YouTube and we have so many more folks. Thank you. I'll see y'all in a little bit.
Very cool. And I will say that this is the 306th episode. And a particular welcome. I'm going to make myself not see the comments, because if I see them, I keep wanting to talk to you. And a particular welcome to those who are here for the first time. I already could see in comments that there are many first-timers. You are very welcome here. And you will get a robust welcome from the History Matters community, which is a community after 306 episodes, but long before that too. Okay, let's talk about today's topic. Manhood, manly men. My initial thought for the reason to do this is obvious, and I'm going to mention this in a minute, right? It has to do with what's coming out of the White House and the culture surrounding it, and then really more broadly what's going on in American culture. And then the more I delved into this morning, world culture, but the United States has its own special brand of this. Now, it's worth noting, and actually before I go on to it's worth noting, I will say, and I began to recall all that I'd done in grad school. When I was in grad school, and I knew I was going to be writing in one way or another about political violence among the elite, and I needed to understand how to think about manhood, I did a lot of work on manhood. I read books like American Manhood. So I've got a lot of books here that I didn't get to look in all of them this morning, but what it did call to mind is that I have a long-standing interest in different time periods, what manhood is, because in studying the 18th century, late 18th century, I wanted to understand how these elite men's, how their understanding of themselves as men shaped how they behaved as politicians. And obviously, in particular, I wanted to understand dueling, because that's definitely smack right in the middle of manly culture. The idea being you're proving that you're a man, you're proving that you're brave enough to face fire. And no one really wanted to do that, but they felt compelled to do that. And I remember finding a quote from someone who was at Alexander Hamilton's bedside as he was dying after the duel. And he and another person ran outside to get air because they were overwhelmed. And this person said, none of us should duel, but, quote, we are all cowards. And that stuck with me. They were afraid not to. They were afraid what people would think of them as men if they didn't behave that way. And that's really powerful. So I've always been interested in this topic generally, and particularly in the realm of politics, early politics, but still, how do the feelings of men about themselves as men, how does that shape how they behave as politicians? That's going to be some of what I'm addressing today. Now, it's important to note that in different time periods, manhood is defined in different ways. And actually, this book, which is a great book on the topic by Anthony Rotundo, American Manhood, works its way through time, talking about the different sort of models of manhood that have emerged in different places and different times, and talks about why these changes normally happen. And I'll begin with that and then go back to this particular White House. Okay. Actually, this is from the American Psychological Association, which says, debates about masculinity, so thoughts about what men really are, resurface, forgive me, every 2 to 3 decades, often during periods of significant social and economic upheaval. I'm going to repeat that one. Debates about masculinity resurface every 2 to 3 decades, often during periods of significant social and economic upheaval, and then goes on to cite a number of different times, like the Great Depression and a number of other places where suddenly it was very important to think about being a man. This is from an article from the American Psychological Association, written by Efua Ando, Efua Andoh, last year. So citing my sources as a good historian would. Okay, so once you recognize that different periods have different ideas about manhood, they change for various reasons, but one of the reasons why they change has to do with the economic and social climate surrounding them. Then you can begin to think about the current moment in really interesting ways. Now let's look at some of the evidence of the manly men. And I'm sure, I can't imagine someone not having noticed this before. I have to say, should have said at the outset, when I was getting ready frantically, I was shutting down tabs on my computer, and I still had YouTube open and to the page where this is showing. And what I saw at like 9:45 was that there were already 50 people talking to each other. And it had never occurred to me that you guys are on there before we begin. And so I was like, wait, they're already on there, run. So anyway, that was a new and scary realization. But anyway, let's look at some of the evidence. Think about the videos that have been coming out from the White House, a number of them. In one way or another, they look like actually video games of shooting and planes and drama. And, I think at some earlier point on some online thing, I said they look like movies, but it's not movies. It's video games. And it's the kinds of video games where you shoot, crush, kill, coming out of the White House, right? In a celebratory manner. Then you get the fact that supposedly, and I don't know if this is still going to happen, but certainly there was discussion around July 4th of having a UFC show on the White House grounds. Now, I didn't know precisely what UFC stood for, other than it must have something to do with fighting. It does indeed. UFC is Ultimate Fighting Championship. And it's a Las Vegas-based mixed martial arts. I want to know. It's not an industry. Organization puts on these shows of men fighting. I don't know if there are women. There probably are. I don't even know. But it's fighters. Fight. The fact that we might be commemorating July 4th with manly men pounding each other around on the White House grounds, I can't even. But anyway. And then I think yesterday, was it that we discovered that the FBI is going to be training, and it might even be with these same UFC people. They were going to be training on how to get tough, how to rumble, how to physically fight, because we all know that's what the FBI does, right? No. That's not the job of the FBI. The FBI is tracking things down and investigating, and they're not rolling in the gutters. But hey, current head of the FBI thinks that's a good idea. Just think about the way, the language that's used, and even the thought process that's used right now just concerning what's going on in Iran, the sort of raining down death, like Hegseth, right? We're going to rain down death. We're going to bring destruction, blood, warfare. I think of Lost in Space, and I think the robot said kill, crush, destroy. That's what goes through my head. That's the language that they're using, and seemingly the logic that they're using, because there's what we learn every day, and it's not surprising at this point, is that there's no plan in place for anything that's happening in Iran. No plan in advance. Today, I read an article about how they had no plan about what would happen if the straits were shut down and oil couldn't get through. No plan, never thought about it. Americans in Iran, let's get them out of there. No plan, never thought about it. It's just manly men fighting. And I realize that's a slight exaggeration, but if you're going to go into warfare of some kind and not plan, first of all, that's unintelligent. I won't say stupid. That's what I'm thinking. It's unintelligent. But it also suggests you just think that you can barge in there and with your super strength and superpower can take over and you'll win, and that's naturally how the universe works. Now, a couple of things that encouraged particularly extreme masculinity that I think have helped get us to the place where we are now. And I actually, since I'm interested in the topic, since I've researched it before, I was all over the place on the internet today, just digging around. And so here are some of the conclusions that came out. And I will say there is a presentation from The Guardian from October of 2025 that was really good, pretty lengthy, like a video presentation, really analyzing the current moment in manhood that I highly recommend. It was good. Okay. So among the things said in my online research, one thing it made clear was that a lot of the stuff, it's not exactly new, but it used to be niche, right? It used to be, there was like a little corner of the internet where this was taking place, where this was going on, and a small-ish group of people who were engaged in this kind of manhood talk and manhood behavior. And guess what changed it, right? The internet, social media, TikTok, all the ways in which it becomes, number one, easier to plug into pretty extreme things. And number two, once you've looked for extreme things, the algorithms give you more. So particularly among young men a couple of years back, they've been immersed in this stuff, and it's really available, and now it's really mainstream and really widespread. So it was once a targeted group of people focused on this. Now there are a lot of people focused on it. There's something even called, I'm not going to get it. I erased the word, looks maxing, I think, which has to do with trying to change your appearance so that, to get the ultimate ideal, which involves, among other things, a strong jawline. So at some point I saw like men sort of pounding their, don't even ask. All of this together, all the influencers and all of the stuff online is by some labeled the manosphere, MANOSPHERE. And it's described, and I believe this is from the American Psychological Association, as an international network. Oh no, this is The Guardian. An international network of social media influencers and communities promoting male supremacy and anti-feminist ideologies, the manosphere. So that's out there. Used to be niche, now it isn't. And what does the manosphere tell you? Well, among other things, it gives you, if you're a guy and you're plugging into this and it's appealing to you, it gives you a sense of agency. It suggests that you can control your fate, that you have some power over what's going to happen because you are focused on you and your own strength. And we certainly live in a time that thinking that somehow or other you can create agency for yourself, given the way in which I think for most of us, it feels like we don't have a lot of agency over anything right now, that everything is a sort of swirling cyclone of chaos. You can see how the idea of having agency, becoming a man and changing the world for yourself would have appeal. It goes back to the idea I mentioned a moment ago, that in times of change, economic change, when particularly a downturn, having agency and using manhood to do that, that makes sense. Apparently, another thing that also tends to align with manhood, the focus on it rising, is the belief, and this will make sense, but I hadn't put it in these words before, a belief that you can't rely on the state for anything. It's all you. It's you against the world. You can be a strong man. You can have agency. You can do what needs to be done. You are everything. You can't rely on anything else. You can't rely on the state. This is also born of the fact that I was going to say you can't rely on community, because for a lot of people, they don't have community. They've been, from the pandemic, sitting at home online, and they're reading and looking at all of this stuff online and the influencers online, and not engaging with real people. So that's not helping either. Now, many of you are probably already thinking this. This sounds a lot like some of the things that encourage fascism. Ha! Indeed. So if you think about fascism as authoritarianism with very rigid hierarchies about what you can and can't do, and a belief in a natural social order in which things are the way they should be, and men serve a certain role and women serve a certain role, and the feeling that these things are being destroyed, fascism becomes appealing. You can see why there's overlap between manly thoughts and fascism. And it used to be, when this was apparently a more of a niche concern, there was a sort of alt-right, I won't use necessarily the word fascist, but that political mentality, folks who believed in that were part of it. It makes perfect sense. Controlling people, putting in place hierarchies that favor you, right? And it makes sense that in times of big change, social and economic, you're going to not only want to focus on things that will give you power and agency, you're going to feel that you have to. So, think about the semi-recent past. And I know this is a cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. Think of having a Black president. Think of 2 prominent women running for the presidency and having a real chance of winning the presidency. Think of the ways in which some of the disparities in things like pay or opportunities or rights, they've been, or at least there was work on trying to bring more equality. That might feel to a white man of a certain ilk that his power is being taken away. If you believe that you and your kind should be in power permanently, forever, and that what's happening now is that your power is being taken away in all of these ways, then some of what we're seeing now is, in a sense, a backlash against the fact that there was actually some real change in the wind. And so the folks who had power all along and now feel that their absolute power has been diminished a bit, which it has. They should not have absolute power. We're seeing in part the response to that idea. Wait, I want all the power. I don't want less power. They don't deserve power. The power is all mine. That's some of what we're seeing and some of what we're feeling in this moment. If you plug democracy into that equation, if you feel that you're losing power and you should have the power forever and ever and ever, because white men should always have the power, you can see why elections might not be on the top of your list for good things. Elections mean anybody can win. That's the point. Elections are ideally free and fair contests in which someone is elected based on who the people want. And there's no control, hopefully, over the results. And if you really are worried about power, losing your power, wanting to regain your power, wanting to never lose your power, democracy is not going to be your friend. Now, here's the final sort of piece of the puzzle here. And I hadn't focused before on the degree to which this was true. Donald Trump plugged into the online manosphere in a way that former presidential candidates couldn't have, but also didn't. So he was appearing on some of these fringe, podcasts and things. He was in there. He was in the mix in ways that probably most of us didn't know or see because we're not listening to those podcasts or, we're not there. But apparently he was there. He was plugged in. He was appealing to these people. And his appeal was, I'm a manly guy who doesn't follow the rules. To hell with the laws. I can make crimes happen because I'm more powerful than everyone. You can see how his undemocratic way of proceeding, unconstitutional, undemocratic way of proceeding, would appeal to people who feel that their power is being threatened and the key to getting it back is being more manly. So Trump sort of played that before he got elected. And it certainly in some ways, I did not look for studies, charts and graphs that could talk about the influence of that. But the fact of it is really interesting. And what that means is that we live in a world, an environment where manhood is political capital. Manhood is not just power. Manhood with this regime is political power. Manhood, in a way, is an entry card, right? Manhood, extreme manliness, is basically an ideology for these folks. Think about the things that are very openly, blatantly celebrated, right? And I've talked in my evening, A Few Thoughts for Those Who Can't Sleep, I talk about community a lot. And people over and over and over and over and over again say the cruelty is the point. Empathy, things that are not manly. Empathy, you don't want empathy. You want toughness. You want cruelty. You don't want kindness. You don't want community. You don't want all of the things that create civil society. Those things are going to be seen as feminine and as things that are going to take away some of your power. This is the moment that we're in. And this regime has this sort of extreme manliness as their ideology, which gets back to where we began, which is this is a war or warfare being fought by people who didn't plan because they assumed they could zoom right in and get what they want because they're just guys, they're men, and they can do what they want, grab what they want, and say what they want, and nobody can get in the way, no lousy constitution, no twiddly laws. I won't say that extreme manliness is the ideology, but it sure as heck is a guiding ideology of the folks in power. And that helps make sense of why empathy is such a bad thing to these folks. It doesn't fit into that manly idea. Okay, perfect timing on my part, if I do say so myself. Okay, Now I'm going to open comments so I can see people's.
Okay,
comments.
so now again, I'm going to do the best I can to keep up. You're going to use capital letter Q 3 times in a row, Q, 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 and then start asking your questions.
Mug.
Oh, the mug reveal. Oh, gosh. Okay, hold your questions for a minute. Sorry.
Hang on. Gosh, guys,
Mug reveal, and then
306 episodes, and I still routinely forget the mug. And this one actually makes sense. And this one of you guys gave me. And maybe, Annie, you will remember who.
Maybe.
Burr shot first. Hamilton shot first. I don't know what you heard, but whatever it is, Jefferson started it.
It might have been Jenny Banowitz from Chicago. I think that was one from the mug exchange we did at NCHE when we were in Salt Lake. And I want to say that was from Jenny.
If you're here and
I don't know if she's on with us.
Yeah, this was from the mug exchange at NCHE. Yeah. It's a dueling mug. I was so on target when I was picking the mug, right? I was like, hey, for once you don't have to stretch with me. Okay, now I'll stop and we can go back to.
Yep. Okay. So I'm scrolling through the comments to make sure. All right. Trying to get to the bottom of the comments. Mug, mug, mug.
While you're looking, I will say one thing. Some of you are saying like, wow, that was a great talk. And I have to confess that I went into academic mode. So that was kind of a little lecture on manhood in the present day. And I don't normally do that, but that's why it felt kind of cohesive. Because as I was doing it, I was like, oh, I would say this. Now I would say this. So anyway, okay, I'll stop.
Okay. So we have questions. This one, our first one is from our good buddy up in Minnesota, Tim Johnson. Would you consider the Reynolds pamphlet an early version of a manly publication?
Wow. A question I didn't expect.
Yeah.
I would say it's an early, it is a pamphlet that came out at a time when what mattered was men and character. You know, so the argument of the Reynolds pamphlet is basically, and for those of you who don't know, Hamilton had an adulterous affair with Maria Reynolds, and then it was exposed, and he was charged with misusing treasury funds and using them to pay blackmail to Maria Reynolds' husband. And Hamilton wrote the pamphlet saying, no, I never used public money. It was my money and I was committing adultery. And the logic of it was, I'm an honest public servant, but you know, in private life, I might not be the best guy, but I'm an honest public servant. So he was trying to like protect his character in the way he thought he should. And at the time, it's not as though it was rare for these guys to do what they wanted to do. That was its own version of manly culture. So that's how I would describe the Reynolds pamphlet. In a way, it was super manly. He was like, yeah, I'm committing adultery, and we all do that. That's okay.
All right. Tessa Colley asks, what can we make of women who have roles in the manly man administration? How is their presence performative versus functional?
That's a really, really good question. And I know there's people who are and have written about that. Related to that is the people who have written about women amidst Southern slavery culture, slave regimes, that women buy into these oppressive regimes in part because they assume they get power by association. They assume that linking themselves up with the guys in charge means they're going to be better off than these other women who don't have any connection at all. Not fully focusing on the fact that part of the underlying premise of that particular brand of guy is that women don't count, women don't matter. Why do they have the vote? They should be at home raising the kids. There was just an article out that I read, and now I don't remember where, on the fact that there are growing numbers of women leaving the MAGA movement because they're discovering that there's kind of no place for them there. So it's in one way or another, all of this is about power. It's all about power. And I think one of the reasons for that is that, and that's true too. I'm going to come back to what someone just said. One of the reasons for that is these women are linking themselves to power and they're afraid of what happens if they don't. That's the other half of the equation. Mm-hmm. Either way, the outcome is the same until enough women, sort of realize a sense of their rights and pull away. Yeah, face-eating leopards is what I was thinking when I read that article this morning. It's like, oh no, the leopards are going to eat my face too? Anyway, go on.
Okay, No Name, No Jane asks, do you think this revisiting and reevaluation of manliness is part of what's leading to the legislative transgender panic? I know that some of it is connected to misogyny, which is why they're focusing on trans women, but she's wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, and misogyny is tied into the manly stuff too, right? And I thought of that this morning. I think that's more complicated than to just say it's grounded on manliness and gender roles, but boy, is that a big part of it. These aren't real men. That's scary. What are they? They don't fit a category. They're bad. They're threatening us. Bad. So if you're in a world where you're really focused on the need for men to be men, and if you're not that way, then, according to some, you're subhuman, but at least you don't count. You're minor league, and you're seemingly destroying American society, then yeah, trans people are going to feel like an attack on you because it's going to feel like an attack on your hold on power. So that my mind went right there this morning, and I didn't have time to look for, because let me say, because it's important. People, I'm not announcing all of this for the first time. Like, it's not as though I've discovered all of this. I'm pulling it together for you. But a lot of people have been studying this idea in one way or another. And so, I mentioned one or two things, the Guardian article and something from the American Psychological Association in this book. There's a lot of stuff out there if you're interested in
it. So Dave, our good buddy Dave, who's been with us since the very beginning, he wants your thoughts on the Doge Boys and DEI and how they ransacked the data with people's Social Security and all their other personal data from millions of Americans. He's wondering, do you consider them DEI hires?
Oh boy. Before I'm going to come right back to that, I just want to say, Jay Czar says transgender men are usually invisible, speaking as one. And I just feel the need to say that because that's a good and important point. Okay. So the question is about what the people, the Doge people who are hired to root. So one thing I want to mention, and I know that all of the Doji, however you want to pronounce it, hires were not all young men, but a lot of them were. And I don't know if some of you have seen the videos floating around online that have been taken as testimony by the men who were charged with canceling NEH funding things that had anything to do with DEI. If you haven't seen them, find them. Those men, they look, I mean, this is the way I refer it to myself. They look like they're 12 years old. They're not big grown men. They're, I don't know, 20, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm bad at guessing age. But these are really young men. And in the videos, it's clear they don't know what DEI is. They have just a vague sense. And so if something has something to do at all with gender or race, poof, it's gone. It doesn't really matter. They don't think about it. So these are, and it's interesting that a number of them, and again, I couldn't, yes, someone says, Carol says they'd be carded in a bar. Probably. Honestly, I saw a couple of those videos yesterday, and one came up this morning. These are really, really young men who probably have been affected in some way by that manosphere. And so this appeals to them as, a good thing, a righteous thing that they're doing. So, what was the specific question? I want to be sure I answer.
They wanted to know if the Doge boys about DEI, how they ransacked people's data.
Yeah.
Wanted to know if they were DEI hires.
Oh, okay. Okay. So on the one hand, I'm going to say that I don't know. On the other hand, I'm going to say they're not hiring women to do that job. They would not hire women to do that job. And I doubt they'd hire anyone of color to do that job. They want people to look for things that affect those people. So don't know, if you were making hires, you probably want a white man to be digging through and finding things because that's who you want to win the current moment. Yeah. Make of that what you will, but that's the way
And I had to laugh when you said they didn't even know what DEI was, because like on the teacher side, when they started canceling CRT, all the school boards and all the, but they don't know what it is. They couldn't tell you to save their life what CRT was. They just knew that they wanted to ban it in all their schools.
There's a video floating around of someone asked to define what DEI is, because he was asked to, root it out of NEH applications. And he clearly doesn't really know. So
our previous governor, our previous governor made an executive order, no DEI and no CRT, but then no one in his administration could tell us what it was. So, right. Okay. The next question is coming from C.A. Kress. It says, historically in America, when has this matter of manliness become problematic and how was it countered? She's interested, or he, I'm not sure, if there's any sort of an example.
Well, there have been a lot of examples when this has mattered in American history. This is definitely not the first time. And like actually the article that I only quoted a line from, that article says, well, there was a lot of joblessness after the Great Depression, and then suddenly manliness became important. And then in the 1960s, when people were scared about the economy, suddenly rising juvenile delinquency, and then women and civil rights, suddenly there's one. So there have been moments when things have been shifting and it has come into play. But just think about models of leadership that have succeeded. Think about Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson, this guy, Western guy, fought duels, won duels, tough guy, Battle of New Orleans. Like Andrew Jackson, at that moment, was a hero, not just because of what he did, but because of what he was. Tough guy, doesn't necessarily play by the rules. And then think about what happened at that. It happened all the time, but in that particular moment to Native Americans, to indigenous people, with a president who assumes, I have the power, we have the power, we'll do what we want, and we'll do it in a focused, enforced kind of way that's meaner and nastier and more extreme than what has come before, that's actually legislated. That's one example. Yeah, there certainly have been a lot of moments in American history. When I teach about women's rights in my history courses, and I say, people want to think about women's rights as this. And then, in fact, women's rights is this. There's a Rosie. Somebody
woke up. Please. Rosie's all about the women's rights.
Female bird rights.
That's
She's
right.
speaking up. Anyway, so, the same, I said at some point at the outset of my comments that, manliness is sort of created for a moment. And on the alternate side of that, femaleness, femininity, is also affected by the climate around it, for sure. So it does change over time. Someone said, when has masculinity not been a problem? And to some extent, you could say that. But talking more about moments of extreme masculinity, or what I guess some people now call toxic masculinity, those are particular moments that if you were a historian, if you were in grad school trying to figure out something like that, you would want to immediately go and check to see the state of society and how people are feeling about, if you're focusing on the United States generally. I will say, I mentioned it briefly at the beginning, it's not only in the United States that this is happening. So like the manosphere is seen as international, but the United States has its own particular brand of this that is infested with guns in a way that other forms of manly men in other parts of the world probably are not.
Yeah. So Freda, our good friend Freda, has been with us for a long time, has a question that makes me think of the movie Erin Brockovich, actually. She says, I see what is hypersexualized dress by women performers and some people in general. The same women tend to be the take no prisoners type. I find that exposed dress very vulnerable. She wanted to know if you had a comment about that.
Wow.
It just made me think of Erin Brockovich.
Yeah. I'm going to be vaguely personal. When I was starting out as an academic, so now it's a long time ago, and there were definitely not a lot of women political historians or early American women political historians, and very frequently I was like one of one or two people, women in a room. So it was pretty obvious all the time. And I had seen, you guys remember the 80s, the 70s, 80s, when women were wearing these like mini men suits with like a
big
little
shoulder pads.
Yeah. When women were dressing like a woman version of what men did. And
Paul Poundstone.
Yeah. I don't know
that.
That's a style choice, but
Annie
I mean,
Hall.
the Annie Hall also was using it to be trendy. I just mean like you go to work and you put on your suit with your shirt and your sensible shoes and your little bow tie or something, and you know, or a little tie at the neck. It was like a really specific attempt to look like a businessman. I'm not talking about general fashion sense, because even I did some of that. But so I was in this world, it was all men all the time. And I hated the idea that these women were dressing with the little tie at the neck and I hated it. And I was older. I was 30 when I began grad school. So I wasn't, youngin' at that point. And I deliberately dressed in a way that made me feel attractive. Not for whoever was watching, but like I wore a skirt that wasn't past my knees. It was above my knees. I wore clothing, I already owned it, that felt to me like I was taking ownership of the fact that I was a woman. And I strutted around in that clothing. I even had women say, "You're owning this." And I didn't do it on purpose. But looking back, that's exactly what I was doing. I was like, okay, hey guys, this might make you uncomfortable.
Deal with it.
Yeah, right? It was like, and this isn't for you. And I made it clear I wasn't like cozying up to them. It was about me having my own power, not dressing in a sexy way, but dressing in a female way. So anyway, that's part of an answer to the question. And there are, what's interesting about women's, particularly office or professional clothing, is men have a uniform. I remember talking about this on Backstory, the podcast I did with Brian Ballow and Ed Ayers and Nathan Connolly years ago. Men have a uniform, right? They can wear a button-down shirt and khaki pants and a blazer and some kind of basic shoe, maybe a tie. That's it. They're going to be neutral. There is no neutral for women. You put on low heel shoes, you're making a statement. You put on high heel shoes, you're making a statement. You wear a blazer, you don't wear a blazer. You wear a skirt, you wear pants. No matter what you wear as a woman, you're making some kind of statement, whether you want to be or not. So if our clothing becomes politicized, genderized in that way, depending on you and depending on the climate that you're working in, you have to decide how you want to respond to that. And there's no wrong choice. You do what you want to do. Yeah, you wear, that's right. Karen, you do anything, you're making a statement, because there's no neutral. There's no neutral outfit for women, like for men. You see a guy in khakis with a button-down shirt and, some basic shoe, what do you assume about that person? Well, that's a normal person.
Well, if he's in khakis, he works at State Farm.
Well, not necessarily khakis.
His name has to be Jared at State Farm. So.
Right. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, you see a woman going to work with high heel shoes, you got a lot to assume. You see someone in low heel shoes. Anyway. So that's a thing to think about. Like I said, my way of dealing with that is to heck with you. I'm going to own, who I am and my power, but you got to think about it. Someone wants me to show the mug hider. Okay. Anyway, that's part of my answer to that. And yeah, Erin Brockovich is part of that. She was, no holds barred, out there, a fighter dressed in really, really sexy clothing. This is the mug holder someone wanted me to hold up with a little.
There's like a button, right? It wraps it around. There's a little button. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay. Deb and Paul, our good friends, ask, was the conception of manliness among the founders different than the conception today?
Well, yes and no. I think it's different at all different times for all different reasons. The ways in which I would say it's similar, and this is part of what all these articles that I read this morning talked about, is that manhood and manliness nowadays, and for a good chunk of time before now, has to do with being the breadwinner, supporting your family. And we're in a climate where that's not easy to do. So that's breeding some of the culture that we're in. And you could say that throughout time, that kind of has been part of the picture, right? You're supposed to be a man, you're supposed to support your family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there are different variants, right? So, this is a minor trivial one, but think about the degree to which men in the late 18th century wore pants that stopped at the knee and stockings. And when they were in portraits, they would show a leg. Like, it was supposed to be really like manly and elite for you to show off your leg. Look at me, I got good legs. That's not something that would happen today. But there are visual things over time that have changed. I would say the manhood thing is the same. I would also say the sort of being able to fight and defend yourself thing, that's long lasting too. Right? It's not necessarily going to be punching, right? That comes along a little bit later. But you're going to have to know how to defend yourself, meaning if you're elite in a duel, if not, some other way in which you're going to, push back. In the West, there's all of these guys who are gouging each other's eyes out and ripping each other's ears off. There's an article that I always refer to as like gouge, stab, punch. Yeah, they were really violent out there. And that was seen as, guys sort of protecting manliness. So it has different shapes over time. There'll be some similarities, but there'll be some big differences, which is what's fun as a historian, which is trying to figure out the differences and then why are there differences? Because then that shows you something about now. That's change over time. You're studying history, you're studying something, studying something, and then there's change. Okay. Now I have to focus on why the change happens. That's like a major starting point when historians are starting a project.
So Ashley Walker has a good follow-up to that one. Ashley asks, at what point in history did we stop associating manly men with being gentlemen?
That's true. And I bet that is in this American Manhood book. I know it talks about in the 19th century, some versions of manhood, mid-19th century, some versions of manhood were like responsible men who took care of their family, and some were like a rougher and readier version of that. My hunch would be that that's a mid to late 19th century thing. The era of massively killing indigenous people is, not surprisingly, an era in which a not genteel version of manhood is probably also in swing. And there are books written about connecting those two things, actually. So that's part of an answer.
I put a link in the chat.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I put a link in the chat earlier. You know, you were talking about the wrestling stuff, and John Cena, who's an actor now, but he was a wrestler, professional wrestler, did this incredible video for the Ad Council a few years ago, talking about real Americans accept everybody into their community. And he talks about immigrants and LGBTQ and transgender people. And he's like, that's what real men do. Like, real men accept everybody. And we used it for years in civics classes. I think it came out like 2016. And then I noticed the last time I went to go find it, almost every place that's a United States based website had taken it down. It said video is, but the Germans and other people in Europe, you can still find it. So I think the link I put in there might have been from Germany, but it's so sad. Like, it looks like in the last year or so, because of what's been going on with canceling NEH grants and things, everybody has taken it off their website here in the States. But you can still find it if you look for John Cena Ad Council. It's a really good video.
Okay. Ryan here says it has to do with men feeling like the victim. Well, and that's true, but that relates to what I said before. Power is being taken away from them because some other people are getting some. And then, then they're the victim because they don't have everything.
Okay, Jacob Gordon asks, why does MAGA get to define what a man is? Why does everyone grant them that power? And then it says, I don't. As a white man, I've been repulsed by MAGA since it came out of the sewer. That's his comment.
Before I do that, I want to address what my fellow Freeman, Clinton Freeman, says. He says, stop normalizing fantasies about a particular type of man and attributing those traits to all men. I'm not saying that, everyone conform to everything. Oops, my computer is going to die.
Oh no.
I know. I'm not, there we go. I'm not describing fantasies. I mean, so look around at what's being given to us right now, and that's real stuff, the videos and all of that stuff. It's not necessarily what exists, but it's what these guys want and are showing us. So I'm talking about the culture of manhood. I'm not saying that every single man conforms with this at all, but you can talk about norms of manhood that are true in one time and not true in another, and that tell you a lot about power and politics and culture. That's what I'm doing. So I'm not saying every single man conforms to this, but I am saying in different times, different brands of manhood have been popular or not popular, and that tells you a lot about society at that time. Okay,
I feel like you've already touched on this one, but L. Rothweiler asks, do you find the manliness problem to show itself among the culture of professors as well? You kind of mentioned that with the way that you dress when you first, but they went through.
Yeah. I'm not going to go into detail here, but it sure as hell does. Yeah. And it was worse 25 years ago, but it's still there. And basically, if you think, and this is not just true for academics, if you feel at different moments, no matter how educated and cultured the people who you are hanging out with, no matter how cultured they are, that it feels like a boys' club. I remember, I'm not going to use any details. I was at a conference and there were very few women there. And in the break point between papers, there was a group of men around a table, closed circle around a table, men all leaning into each other. And I walked over there and there was like no space for me. No one looked up. It was just like, oop, I'm not a member of the club. When I used to walk into rooms for sometimes conferences, and it would be a room full of men, and you would walk in and people would look up and then look down and look away because who the hell are you? You're some woman. I would walk up to a group that seemed interesting and say, I don't agree with that at all. And then they all turn around and look at you. And then you're arguing, and then you're in the mix. But the fact that I had to do that, so yeah, it might not be as obvious as it has been in the past, but I often think about my grad students who are women and think that I thought it would be better by now. And it isn't. And I think probably a lot of men don't see it because it's less obvious. It's more about being made to feel that you're less than, you don't belong.
You mentioned Backstory earlier, and I know that when y'all finished Backstory, when it wrapped up a few years ago, and we were moving the archive over to our website so that we could make sure none of the links broke, I got to go back and listen to a bunch of the old episodes. And, I listened to that on the radio when it was the original three guys, Peter, Brian, and Ed. And then when Peter left, you and Nathan came in. And it's so interesting to watch the trajectory, I can never say that word, how the show really started opening up to more topics. And I remember as a teacher who listened every Friday, like with my kids after school, it was a big deal to us. Like, it was like, there's a woman on Backstory, right? And then my other colleagues, like, there's a bro on Backstory. Like, he got so excited to see Nathan, somebody that looked like him, on a academic, and it was.
I learned so much. I learned so much from that because I know routinely I would say things that seemed obvious to me, and these wonderful guys who were my co-hosts, they're the most amazing, thoughtful, sensitive people. They just had never thought about some of this stuff before, right? And I would say something that was obvious or something, I talked about. I remember at one point stepping down from having given a presentation, and a man coming up to me and commenting on how I should wear my hair. And I remember the three of them went, and I thought, okay, if that shocks you.
Did you tell Brian how to cut his hair? No.
Well, no, right. Anyway, so that was actually.
Hillary went through the same thing with her pantsuits.
It taught me a lot about what's invisible. And kind of to go back to my fellow Freeman's question. I'm not saying these guys are evil, buying into evil manhood. I'm just saying they're living their lives. Why would they think about things like you always have to wear pants when you're doing a presentation? Because if you have to sit on the stage, people will look up your skirt. So first thing, I'm like, what does the stage look like? Is there a table with a skirt around it? No skirt around it? Then I better wear pants because, and why would a guy have to think about that? He wouldn't, but every woman thinks about it. So anyway.
All right. Dell asks, what type of impact do you think Andrew Tate, what they call incels, and the edgelord community, I'm not familiar with that term, the edgelord community had in the early formation of this manosphere? I know who Andrew Tate is. I know what incel, but I have never heard of edgelord. Someone's going to need to enlighten me.
Yeah, edgelord, I don't know either.
Sounds like something from Game of Thrones.
It does.
Or The Hobbit or something.
Andrew Tate was all over the Guardian article. So if you're interested in this, they had video of him talking and the ways in which he impressed people. So the answer is apparently a lot. I only know who he is and what he represents. I don't know anything else about him, but basically it's clear from what I was running around researching that he was a big part of it. Edgelords are folks who are offensive, peddlers and shock value, trying to be
almost like a shock jock.
Yeah, trying to be edgy.
Katya commented that she has a trans member of their family and wondered if the manliness is a reason they're going after the trans folks, that, feeling threatened. So she made that comment about her own family experience.
Oh, yeah. No. And there's a reason why women's studies departments are being eliminated right now. What a shock.
And African-American studies.
African-American studies right now, not valid. I mean,
but I will say, there's been a movement for about 5 years now, and it's starting to gain traction. Women's history might be the next AP course that they start offering in high schools. There's a group that's been pushing for it, and they actually got a meeting with the AP board at the last national meeting. So maybe some progress. Ames has a really interesting commentary about the culture of reality TV, where it's like, Survivor, The Apprentice, it's everyone for themselves. Wondering if that has contributed over the years, like the rise of reality TV show where everybody's pitted against you, that Traitors show. I don't watch any of that stuff, but it just seems like it's all very mean spirited. And they're wondering, is that playing into all this?
I don't know. I mean, one would think, and this is based on nothing but that statement, one would think that in this kind of culture, that's going to be really appealing. But, you know, this goes back a ways, like Real World. How long ago was that? You know, like reality TV and people being kind of pitted against each other. Even America's Next Top Model, in a way, is like women competing against each other and like fighting with each other.
The Real Housewives are awful.
Real Housewives, right. So it's off the top of my head. I would say those shows are successful and appealing because of the climate that we're in. But I don't know, because I don't watch a lot of them. I watched, is it Traitors or The Traitor? I watched that once and then I didn't go back. I think at some point early, I watched Real Housewives of Beverly Hills because for a little while my family lived in Beverly Hills. So I know what they're about. But that it feels to me those are of a piece with our current culture. We are 6 minutes over.
Oh gosh, I didn't even notice the time. Okay. And of course we didn't get to everybody's questions. That never happens, but we appreciate them. We're sorry we can't get to all of them. Do you want to tell what happens now?
Yeah, I will say what happens now. That's right. Hidden Figures is worth a watch. I'm going to try to save the conversation. Sometimes I actually manage to do it. And if I can, then I can send it to Annie and we can look. And if there are other questions, in part, because I love this stuff. This is the sort of stuff I love to study in history. I do. I just want to understand how and why people think the way they do and what influences them. Not what like controls them, but what shapes their sense of should and should not. And we all are shaped by our surroundings about should and should not. So anyway, okay. So what's going to happen now is we're going to go to the after party. In the ancient days when we were on Zoom, this meant that we could stop recording and then we could say whatever we wanted, but we are no longer in the ancient days. So here, instead, we just stop talking about the topic at hand and we just talk about whatever we want. I guess it's more community-ish, even more community-ish than what has happened before. So we can talk about whatever we decide to talk about in the after party. Before we go to the after party, and I used to say when we stopped recording, poof, we were in the after party, and the poof doesn't work anymore. Anyway, so we're about to head off there, which will go for like about another 30 minutes. I want to, before we head off there, first of all, thank you guys for being here week after week in this community, and those of you who came for the first time and creating, look what we talked about today. Like that was so relevant and so immediate, and we talked about it, and people who had good questions about it, even questioning my approach. Excellent. We get to talk about that. So this is the conversation of democracy. We question things, we look at things, we try and figure out what we think about things. So thank you guys for all being here to engage in this. Thank my wonderful partner in crime, Annie, who is, like always here at my side, helping us sort of run it's not chaos. I don't know what you want to call it.
Community.
The community. Thank you. The boisterous community. That is History Matters. I do want
to say I have to give this room up at 11. Like there's another meeting in here at 11:30. So at like 11:28, I have to vacate.
Okay. We will end a few minutes.
Yeah, we got to end like
we'll watch the time. At any rate, thank you guys for being here. If you want to stick around because I don't know what we'll talk about.
You never know.
Okay.
Get real crazy in here.
So that is the formal poof ending of the topic-oriented part of History Matters. Okay. Sticking.
So
yay!
Yes, Tuesday and Wednesday, it was 80 and 87 degrees here. The crocuses and the daffodils came out. It was so beautiful. I was packing all my winter clothes away. Yesterday, we had a blizzard in the morning for about an hour. It was the craziest thing.
Yes.
It was completely covered in snow, like the entire ground for several hours. It changed 40 some degrees in temperature. It went from 80 to like 30 in about 12 hours. It was
and I was like, I like snow, but after 80, I was like, what? Like, yeah,
it's crazy. So did y'all get some? Yeah, it was bonkers here yesterday.
Well, I guess
we're gonna get. I didn't know if anybody else experienced that.
We're gonna get more extreme weather, sadly.
I had to go dig all my sweaters and stuff out again, and
I want to answer soft sound art ASMR Afterparty question. My YouTube handle is Joanne Freeman 1755. That's one of the years that Alexander Hamilton might have been born. That's why I chose the number. So it's not random or randomly assigned. It was Hamilton related. I don't know if anyone's asked that before. So anyway, that is the logic. In Winchester, they had frost. Yeah, it was weird, right?
Well, Winchester isn't that far from Afton Mountain, and the people that were coming to this meeting, it's a 2-day workshop we've been doing, said Afton Mountain was a complete whiteout. Nobody could see, which is crazy. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it is Friday the 13th. So be careful.
And someone told me today is the anniversary of when everything shut down for the pandemic, that it was March 13th when everything shut down.
It could be.
So is this the 5th year anniversary? Is that about right?
Does anyone know? I know that I was supposed to go to Virginia to give a talk.
I was on my way to South by Southwest and my flight got canceled and my room got canceled.
I think at some point in there, I did one last event. And then Yale said, yeah, no, we're not recommending that people fly right now. And I want to say, I don't know. I want to say February, but I don't know.
I know it was March because we had just launched our website, and our first big thing was going to be going to South by Southwest EDU, and the whole thing got canceled.
People are saying
Wednesday night they called and said they're canceling the whole conference and the film festival. I was like, wow.
People are saying March 13. Interesting. Look at that. Wow.
5 years. It seems like it was so long ago, but it really wasn't.
No, it's 6 years, right? 2020.
Oh, is it 6? Oh, wow. I'm not good at math. That's why I'm the history teacher.
I'm not either. But
history people don't do math. It's been 6 years.
6 years.
That would be about right, because in 7 years will be I've been working at U of R 7 years starting in July. Will be
doesn't seem.
8th year.
Do you guys feel? I don't know about you, Annie. It felt to me that ever since the pandemic started, all time has collapsed, and I'm not good at talking about how long ago something happened, or like somehow that ended my sense of time in some way it existed before, and it never fully came back. Do you find that? You do?
I do. And it does feel like there was like this suspended time that we were just in a bubble. And there was a really cool article that came out yesterday that talks about the kids that were born the year of the pandemic are kindergarten this year, and how they really don't have the same social skills.
Right.
And it's really hard to get them because they were at home isolated for so long in the most formative years of their life. So,
I saw that for a while, at least, in a certain, I don't remember what years it was. There was a cadre of college students.
Yes.
Who
did high school on Zoom.
That a couple people said they found that they didn't know how far to stand away from someone when they're talking to them. And they didn't understand like how much time should pass between when you say to do something and then you're going to go like all of the things that you have to think about when you're there in person. I just hadn't thought about like how close you stand to someone. That's the most basic thing. And the other thing was, I'm 5 feet tall on a good day now. Like I got a little shorter than I was before. But so I probably was 5'1" 6 years ago. And no one knows. At the end of one of my Zoom classes, someone said, I don't know how tall anyone is. And then
Oh, that's true.
Right. I was back on campus. The students were like, you're really short.
See, I get the opposite. When people meet me in the person, they're like, you don't look that tall on Zoom. I'm like, well, that's because I'm in a chair. But I mean, I'm only 5'7". It's not like I'm an Amazon, but
no, but 4'12". Yeah. So lately I've been weighed and measured a lot because I've been rummaging around in doctor's offices. And every time I'm like, I'm tall. I'm a little like, did I make
my grandmother was short to begin with, but as she got older, she started shrinking.
Yeah, no, that's a thing.
And my brother started, she had white hairs. My brother started calling her the Keebler elf.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that at all.
She didn't like it either. And I was like, Richie, that's not nice. But it was just, but she kind of, I mean, she kind of did look like the Keebler.
Someone told me this a couple of days ago. You're, like if you're losing bone density generally, you're going to get shorter. And when you get older, you lose some bone density. And so your vertebrae get a little more collapsed, and then you lose height. Oh, there's someone. Hang on.
Someone said it's fun sized. I like that.
I like that.
Sherry.
Lulu says lost 1.5 inches so far. Well, I lost an inch. And, my goal, somehow I never thought about it. My goal, I used to lift weights all the time. I don't know if that helped that much. My goal was to just not get under 5 feet, right? I was 5'1", and I was like, okay, I know I'm going to shrink. Everyone does, just not lower than 5 feet. And the day that I got measured and I was like 4'11" point something, I was so outraged. No, I don't want to get beneath them. Anyway, so yeah,
that's funny.
I'm trying to catch up to and osteoporosis doesn't help. That has an extreme version of the natural fact that your bones become less dense.
I like Frenchie Sandy. It says if your feet reach the floor, you're tall enough.
Yeah. Although, I remember relating to our conversation today, really early on in my time at Yale, I went to a faculty meeting, and the faculty meetings for the history department are in this big room with, wood paneling on the walls and big desks and big portraits of people. And there were, along the side of the room, there were like couches, leather couches, not only space. So I remember going into the meeting, probably not my first one, but for some reason in this one, I walked in and I sat down on a couch because I thought it would be more comfortable, and realized what a dire mistake that was, because if I leaned back, my feet didn't reach the floor because the cushion was too wide. So if I put my back against the back, my feet were just sticking out. And I said out loud to myself, this makes me feel really short. And a very esteemed older faculty member said, you are short. I was like, thank you very much. So, yeah.
So Marlo Carl asked if anybody knew the demographics of this community, like how many men versus women, that kind of thing. We really don't. I mean, we've met a lot of people. Like when I travel, I always tell people where I'm going to be. And then we've had some meetups, like about, Carolee, what year was it? We had 24 people from this community come to Monticello one summer. We broadcast live from Monticello, and then we all did the house tour together and spent the whole day here. And the Monticello people comped all the tickets for us, which was really nice. They gave me 25 free tickets. I think there were 24 of us, and then my sister came. But, we've done a lot of meetups over the years, Carolee and I, whenever we go to teacher conferences. But I don't think we have like a list anywhere, or we don't know everybody's age or ethnicity or religion. It doesn't matter. We're just all friends, and we're all here because we genuinely love history and love people.
My hunch would be, I think you're totally right. My hunch would be skews a little older, slightly skews female. And that's all I would know.
Yeah. But then we have Sydney, who's an undergrad.
Well, I know, but she stands out. She stands out because she's an undergrad. So I don't know. Yeah. That would be my hunch. But I do want to, Tom McAndrew said, I saw that Peter and Frank and you were speaking at Mount Vernon in April about the chapters you contributed to the forthcoming The American Revolution at 250 book, and which made me realize I promised you always to tell you when I'm going to be places.
Yeah.
And so I am going to be at Mount Vernon at a time that I never remember any of this stuff. I think April 16, and then May 6th, I'm going to be at Trinity Church. Uh-oh.
April 16th will be at OAH. Darn, I'm going to miss you. Am I frozen or is Joanne frozen? Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay. Interesting. So it's Joanne frozen, not me, correct? Okay. Can you guys still hear and see me? Okay, right. Sorry, guys. Hopefully she'll come back. Yikes. I thought it was the bad Monticello Wi-Fi, because when you're on public Wi-Fi sometimes. Uh-oh, we completely lost Joanne. Ooh, okay. Well, I got to get out of this room in a few minutes anyway. Let me try texting her. I've got like maybe 3 minutes before they kick me out. Let me try texting Joanne. This has never happened before. I'm sure she'll try. I'll see if she's coming back. Her laptop, she was saying, was dying. I wonder if the battery gave out. Anyway, well, thank you guys for being here. Oh, I see Clinton's here. Hi, Clinton. Guys, if Joanne doesn't come back, because I really do have to leave in a minute or two because they are going to kick me out of this room. As always, thank you so much for coming. We really love this community so much. And we appreciate every single week when you guys show up. If anyone is in Alabama, I will be in Montgomery, Alabama weekend after next. If anybody's in Winchester, I'll be in Winchester next weekend, Winchester, Virginia. You can email me. It's Ann is my legal name. So it's Ann.Evans. I'm putting it in the chat at richmond.edu because I'm based at University of Richmond. Oh, I can't post to the comments because Joanne's kicked out. So that's weird. I can't use chat without her being online because I'm her guest. So anyway, I'll go ahead and end the show, I guess. But thank you all both for being here, and hopefully we won't have any more technical difficulties next week. See you guys next week, same time, and hopefully in between this week, perhaps when Joanne does her late night show. So thanks, everybody.